There are encounters with God that people celebrate, and there are encounters with God that people fear. Because the presence of God is not ordinary, it is not casual, it is not something you handle without consequence. It is holy, it is powerful, and sometimes it is terrifying. In ancient Israel, there was an object so sacred, so feared, that no one dared approach it carelessly. It was not just gold and wood. It was the throne of an unseen king, the Ark of the Covenant. Where it went, God's presence followed. Where it rested, heaven drew near. But not everyone survived being close to it. One man reached out his hand, and in a single breath, he fell dead. So when this same ark was brought, not to a temple, not to a palace, but to the house of an ordinary man, it raised a question that echoes even now. What happens when God comes too close? A man with no fame, no recorded ambition, no great title, just a house that was about to become the dwelling place of God. And his story asks you something deeply personal. If God chose your life as his resting place, would you be ready to host him? This is the story of Obed Edom. In the days when Israel was establishing itself under King David, there existed an object that represented this reality in a way that no one could misunderstand. It was the Ark of the Covenant, a sacred chest overlaid with gold, crafted according to divine instruction, not merely as a symbol, but as a dwelling place of God's presence among his people. This ark was not treated as common because it was not common. It represented the nearness of a holy God, and where it rested, his presence rested. Yet for a long time it had been neglected, placed in the house of Abinadab, removed from the center of Israel's life, almost as though the people had learned to function without the awareness of God among them. David, however, was not content with that kind of existence. He had seen too much of God's hand in his life to settle for distance. He had faced lions and bears, stood before giants, fled from enemies, and been raised to a throne. And through it all, he had learned that success without God's presence is empty. So he made a decision that would shape the course of the nation. He would bring the ark back, not as a religious ritual, but as a restoration of God's presence among the people. He gathered 30,000 chosen men, strong and capable, and they went with celebration to retrieve the ark. The atmosphere must have been electric with anticipation. Music filled the air. Instruments played loudly. Voices rose in joy. And David himself danced before the Lord with all his strength, unashamed and fully given to the moment. It appeared to be a perfect scene, one of unity, celebration, and spiritual renewal. Yet beneath the surface of that celebration was a mistake, one that would turn joy into fear in an instant. God had already given instructions regarding the ark, instructions that were not suggestions, but commands. The ark was not to be handled casually, nor transported in any convenient way. As it is written in Numbers 4:15, "They shall not touch any holy thing, lest they die." It was to be carried by consecrated men using poles, a method that reflected reverence and obedience. But in that moment, they chose a different approach. They placed the ark on a cart. It seemed efficient. It seemed reasonable. It even appeared respectful. But it was not obedience. And when dealing with the presence of God, the difference between what seems right and what is right can be the difference between life and death. As the procession moved forward, the oxen walked steadily, and the celebration continued. But suddenly the ground shifted. The oxen stumbled, and the cart shook. The ark began to tilt, and in that moment, a man named Uzzah reached out his hand to steady it. It was a natural reaction, an instinctive move, the kind of action most people would take without thinking. Yet in that instant, human instinct collided with divine instruction. The moment his hand touched the ark, judgment came, as recorded in 2 Samuel 6:7. Then the anger of the Lord was aroused against Uzzah, and God struck him there for his error, and he died there by the ark of God. The music stopped immediately. The celebration collapsed into silence. The same presence they had been rejoicing over now filled them with fear. No one moved, no one spoke. A man lay dead beside the ark, and the reality of God's holiness stood before them in a way no one could ignore. David himself was shaken deeply. This was not what he expected. This was not what he had planned. The presence he longed for now seemed dangerous, unpredictable, overwhelming. The scripture says in 2 Samuel 6:9, David was afraid of the Lord that day, and he said,
"How can the ark of the Lord come to me?"
Fear took hold of him, and in that fear, he made a decision. He would not bring the ark into Jerusalem, not yet. The journey stopped, but the ark could not remain where it was. It had to go somewhere. And so it was taken aside to the house of a man named Obed Edom. Obed Edom was not a king, not a prophet, not a man whose name carried weight in the nation. He was an ordinary man, living an ordinary life, unaware that his home was about to become the center of something extraordinary. When the ark was brought to him, it was not accompanied by celebration, but by caution. The men who carried it had just witnessed a death. They knew what had happened, and so did Obed Edom. He knew the risk. He understood the weight of what was being placed in his house. And in that moment, he had a choice. He could refuse. He could step back and say that his home was not the place for such a thing. He could allow fear to guide his decision. But instead, he chose differently. He allowed the ark to enter his home. It was a quiet decision, not recorded with many words, but it carried immense significance. He opened his door to the presence of God. That first night must have been filled with awareness. The ark was not just an object sitting in a corner. It represented something alive, something real. Every movement in the house would have been careful. Every sound would have felt louder. Perhaps his family spoke in hushed tones, unsure of what would happen next. They had heard what happened to Uzzah. They knew what the ark represented. And now, it was in their home. But nothing happened. No judgment came. No disaster struck. The night passed, and morning came, and they were still alive. That alone would have begun to shift something in their hearts. As the days passed, the fear that had initially filled the house began to fade. It did not disappear instantly, but it softened, replaced gradually by something else. There was a sense of peace, a quiet awareness that the presence in their home was not there to destroy them, but to dwell among them. As time went on, something began to change, not only in the atmosphere but in their lives. The presence of God does not remain without impact. It begins to shape everything it touches. The way they spoke changed. The way they related to one another changed. There was a sense of order, of alignment, as though everything was being brought into harmony with something greater than themselves. And then, beyond the internal transformation, external blessings began to appear. What had once struggled began to flourish. Their work prospered, their resources increased, their household experienced a level of favor that could not be explained by effort alone. But more than the visible blessings, there was a deeper transformation taking place. Obed Edom himself was changing. He was becoming more aware, more sensitive to the presence of God. What began as a moment of risk was becoming a lifestyle of reverence. This continued for 3 months. 3 months of living with the presence of God in his home. 3 months of quiet, consistent transformation. The scripture captures this entire period in a single verse, yet its meaning is profound. In 2 Samuel 6:11 it says, "The ark of the Lord remained in the house of Obed Edom the Gittite 3 months, and the Lord blessed Obed Edom and all his household." Everything connected to him came under the influence of that presence. Nothing remained untouched. Eventually the news spread. It reached King David, and when he heard it, something shifted in his understanding. As it is written in 2 Samuel 6:12, "Now it was told King David, saying, The Lord has blessed the house of Obed Edom and all that belongs to him, because of the ark of God." In that moment, David realized that the issue had never been the ark. The issue had been how it was approached. God had not changed. His holiness had not changed. But the response of man determined the outcome. So David prepared again, this time with reverence and obedience. He ensured that the ark would be carried as God had commanded.
We take 6 steps, then we stop for sacrifice.
There would be no shortcuts this time. There would be sacrifice. There would be understanding. And as the ark was brought into Jerusalem, there was celebration again. But now it was grounded in truth. For Obed Edom, however, the story did not end when the ark left his house. Something had been awakened in him during those 3 months. Something that would not allow him to return to an ordinary life. Once a man has lived with the awareness of God's presence, he cannot go back to living without it. And so, instead of moving away, he moved closer. Later in the scriptures, his name appears again, not as a passive figure, but as an active servant in the house of God. In 1 Chronicles 15:24, it records that Obed Edom served as a doorkeeper for the ark. This was not a coincidence. It was a reflection of his desire to remain near the presence that had transformed his life. He positioned himself in a place where he could continue to be connected to it. And it did not stop with him. His household, his sons, his descendants were also blessed. They became known for strength, for capability, for faithfulness. The blessing that began in those 3 months extended beyond that season and became a legacy. All of it began with a simple decision. A door opened, a willingness to receive what others feared. The story of Obed Edom is a reminder that the presence of God is not something to be avoided, nor is it something to be treated casually. It is something to be honored, something to be welcomed with reverence. Because while it is holy and powerful, it is also life-giving to those who receive it rightly. And today, the question is no longer about an ark made of gold and wood, but about the condition of the human heart. Because God still seeks a place to dwell, not in objects, but in lives, in homes, in hearts that are willing to receive Him. If this story has stirred something in you, then do not let it pass as mere information. Let it challenge you. let it speak to you. And as you continue to engage with these stories on Whisper of Scrolls, remember that this is not just about history. It is about invitation. And so the question remains, and it is one that cannot be ignored. If the presence of God came to dwell in your life today, would it feel like home, or would it feel like something you are not ready to host?